Welcome back to the Tradesman channel. My name is Jim. If you're new here, if you're not new here, I apologize for the extended absence, but it looks like I am finally back to working locally. First time in 3 months, so anyway, I'm hoping we have some time. So we've got a good series starting for you tonight. If you guys remember that lathe mill we took home a long time ago, we're going to start the restoration process and getting this thing going. So let's take a look at what we're working on. So let's start with the basics of what we are working on. So this is an old line shaft metal lathe. This would have been probably used in a line shaft factory somewhere. Who knows how much use it had? That's the beauty of things like this. You never know what they did. So this is an F.E. Reed metal lathe. It was made in Worcester, Massachusetts. It was sold out of a company in Detroit, Michigan. So who knows where it went. But basically how these work, these old factories, you had a big shaft that would go through the ceiling of the factory or the floor. A lot of times it was overhead shafts on the ceiling. Say if you go to an Amish wood shop now, they run all theirs on the floor, belt driven through a gas engine outside, cheaters. But anyway, what would happen is you would have a belt that would come down from up above and it would engage this guy up here. That in turn would run a leather belt down to another set on the headstock, and that would spin your tools, whether it was a mill, lathe, what have you. That's what they did. So this little garden cover is not original to this machine. This was homemade by whomever owned it before I did, or who knows, even before that. These machines wouldn't have guards on this. This was long before the times of pussification in the modern world, where real men were missing most of their fingers and their wives led lives of very quiet disappointment. Now I've already oiled up a lot of these gears just to get things moving again, and to be quite honest with you, it really didn't have any issues. But you can see how nice everything turns on this, how loose it all is. It's really in good shape. Another neat thing about this machine, you have the old lead-poured Babbitt bearings, and these are actually really tight in here. We'll get a better clue once we pull this stuff apart. But they actually appear to be in really good shape. Everything moves very smooth on them. I've also put a little oil in there. Another nice thing with this old girl is everything moves really smooth. It's actually really nice and tight. I'm really impressed. I mean, there's not a mark on the ways, which would be this area that this apron rides on, or saddle, or whatever they call it. I'm probably going to get a lot of terminology wrong here. But the cross slide moves really well. It is impressive how nice this machine really is. Even the tailstock works in and out smooth. I can work that one finger if needs be. And you can see where I've put a layer of oil on this, kind of start getting any rust starting to loosen up on it so we can get it cleaned up. I'm not sure how far I'm going to go with the restoration. I'd like to do a lot of painting and all that, but we'll just see how far my ability of actually restoring something like this goes. So this little mess we have right here is going to be our first order of business now. I think it's a nice mechanism they built here, but it's very rough. Cut everything out with a set of torches, didn't grind anything, didn't clean anything up. The welds are really sloppy. I mean, somebody was trying hard who wasn't a welder, wasn't a big fabricator, but I'll tell you what, it's stout, it's strong. So I think what we're going to end up doing with this, take this apart, rebuild what's needed as we do it. This is going to be our first order of business because it's going to be the first thing to come off of this lathe, and we're going to go from there. First thing I have to do is unwire this motor. Now, piece of advice, if you're going to unwire stuff, you really should take your time, write things down, label all your wires, just don't go cutting and hacking. That's really such an unprofessional way of doing it. Save yourself a lot of aggravation and just kind of, unwire stuff nice. So this is a style belt, this leather belt, where it's actually it's kind of like a scarf in the leather, and it's a glued lap joint right there. The problem with these belts you got to take everything apart to get them off, unless you cut them off. Now I'm going to cut this one off because it's pretty ratty. I can get my length out of, I've got a hay baler belt. I'm going to cut down the size. It's a rubber belt to use that on. Now we're going to cut that guy. When we go to put it back together, we're going to use a stitched belt so we can take everything apart without having to screw with that. That's better. That main guard was held on there by a spot that he drilled and tapped on that guy there in that casting. Not a big fan of doing that, but that was the only thing really holding the one guard on. So I'm not sure how heavy this drive is. I'm assuming it's probably pretty decent. So we won't take these bolts all the way out. We'll just get them nice and loose. I'd hate to drop it on a casting that, you know, can't be replaced. That would really suck. Well, that's not too bad at all. I was expecting more. Well, there's one heavy piece. There we go. So let's see the good, the bad, and the ugly on this guy and what we plan to do with it. So this is the motor mount plate as well as the top plate. I need to find out what the proper term for a lot of this stuff is. You guys will have to bear with me. But the top set of pulleys here for the belt drive itself, they went over here, motor mounted over here. It looks like there's a couple pieces of plate steel scabbed together. These are kind of bent down right here as if there wasn't enough support in between. Now, I think we're going to completely redo this one right here. This one's not horrible, but there's a couple things that are driving me nuts on it. One, these gussets either aren't the same size or that's not cut square. It looks more like these gussets aren't the same size. It's making me crazy. The other thing is there's old bearings in here. I don't know what they went to, what it was running, but those big open holes, those are going to drive me nuts. And just pretty much all the rough cuts, you know, with the cutting torches. The welds, I can cut these out, redo them. Down here it's not so bad, but yeah, I think we're going to do some major surgery on this, rebuild it and see what develops. What's impressive about these machines is they are so simplistic. It's really quite impressive. They're built really stout, but they're not overly complicated. You know, when the electric motor and everything was on it, it looked like Greek math to me. It looked huge, you know, until you get you start getting pieces off. It's like, holy cow, this thing's really simple. It's just really nice the way the whole thing is. Oh, what do we see? So I'm trying to get the headstock off right now. And I have some square-headed bolts, which that's definitely old school. And I'm finding that a 12.19 millimeter fits them great, where I had to use the socket up underneath the headstock. But other than that, it's a 5/8. It's a 5/8 bolt. I tell you, I kind of hate that I put oil all over this thing, but I just kind of wanted to get any bit of rust or anything loosened up. But there it is right there. Not too bad at all. See how heavy this headstock is. See if it'll come off. Not too bad. Not too fucking working light either. Pardon my French. That's awesome. I could be wrong, but if I had to guess, I bet you that head has not been off of there maybe ever. Who knows? But those are just as shiny and clean as it gets right there. They are beautiful. I mean, nice, sharp, very nice. This is going to clean up real well. Now I've got to figure out the saddle or apron or whatever the heck you call it. Boy, I got to learn the terminology. I've been dying to get into this project for a long time, but I didn't want to start it when I've been working out of town so much. I have tool parts I want to be able to make with the tools we're making in the forge. You know, just collets and things like that. And I'd like some nice quality stuff. I'm like a lot of you. I get so many interests and so many hobbies, it's hard to keep them all straight. But I kind of have the philosophy in life that the more I know how to do, the richer my life is going to be, the less I have to rely on somebody else. Now I have a lot of old farm equipment around here that constantly needs new parts, bushings, things like that. Well, with something like this, if I can get it dialed in, get it working halfway decently, I'll be able to hopefully down the road learn how to make that stuff. Now, this kind of thing, it could be a lifelong process learning it. I definitely want to get a mill and all that good stuff, but it all starts with the metal lathe. There's not a lot that you really can't do on them. People do some amazing things. Even I saw somebody recently make square parts on one. I shit you not, square parts. And it came out just as nice if they made it on a mill. But so we definitely have a lot of things to fix on this. Probably the biggest thing we have to fix is the one cast iron leg down here. One part of it's cracked and broken all the way through. It was a clean crack, so I'm thinking I may try to use some 45% wire and braze it. I don't like welding on cast, but sometimes I can get away with brazing. It works pretty well. I just want to get it so it doesn't break anymore, because I was thinking about taking these legs off and building a new base for this. But to be honest with you, part of the appeal of this old machine is the old manufactured, the cast iron legs. Just kind of neat, you know, that's the way it was built, that's the way it was always used. Looking at it now, I'd hate to take that away from it. The guards that I pulled off, we'll see if they go back on. For safety's sake, they probably should, or I'll make new ones. Haven't decided yet. It's like anything else when you're using equipment like this, you know, you don't wear no hoodies, no loose clothing, sleeves tucked up. I've seen somebody before wrapped up in something like this, and it's really not pretty. They're not forgiving. Flesh and bone, boy, they break real easy on stuff like this. So it's definitely something to be aware. It's probably one of those things you don't run with the kids around, for me anyway. At least my youngest. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'm really hoping I can start getting content out again at the pace we used to. I keep saying it, but every time I think I'm going to be able to, I get shipped out of town for work for weeks on end. This last bit, 2.5, almost 3 months out of town, and it makes it really hard to get out here in the shop. And I'm not one to take the camera to work and run it, because for one, I like to keep this separate from my job. I really enjoy doing this. I'm not saying I don't enjoy my job, in case somebody's watching from my job, but I truly enjoy doing this. I truly enjoy making the videos. I like the interaction with you guys. But at the end of the day, like I've said before, what puts food on the table really has to come first. What's nice about the YouTube, I mean, we're a small channel, but what's nice about it is I make just enough on it, it pays for my hobbies. I mean, it built this shop we're sitting in. It took a long time. It wasn't a quick process, but it did it. It was nice. It was there when I needed it. But now we're just moving on. We're going to keep going. We keep evolving into the things we do. We're trying to get better at it. You guys get to watch me learn how to do all kinds of stuff on here. It's not every day you get to watch somebody learn brand new skills. They've never done it before. I've never touched one of these before. I've never even had my hands on a metal lathe before. I've seen them. I've never even touched one. You know, so this is going to be my first experience with it. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I really don't even know quite what tools I need, but we're going to figure it out. That's half the fun, is learning this stuff and figuring it out. This may not be the best thing to learn on because it's so old. It's going to be slow, which sometimes slow you can watch yourself screw up in slow motion. But I don't know. I think it'll be really fun. I'm looking forward to it. And what's really cool is all the automatic features on this, which I can't believe for something well over 100 years old. They have an automatic cross slide, and the saddle moves up and down, or the apron, or whatever the hell you want to call it. I will get the terminology down. So that all works still. I can turn that by hand, and I can move the carriage back and forth. I can move the cross slide back and forth that the turret sits on. I'm pretty excited about that. It's not a compound slide, which may be down the road for cutting bevels, which is something I'm really interested in for chisel sockets mostly, like the Japanese style chisel sockets. I need to be able to cut bevels on it, so we'll see what we can do, see what we can build. So anyway, good to see you, everybody. I'm looking forward to seeing the comments on this. Now, if some of you are machinists and some of you have any input at all on this piece of equipment, it's a FE reed built in Worcester, Mass. As close as I could tell, it ranges from the 1890s to possibly 1910. This one was built well before Prentice and Reed merged to form Prentice Reed. So it's at least 120 years old, if not closer to 130. Now anyway, I'm out of practice talking to the camera. That's what happens when you only get one a month out for months. So anyway, have a good night, guys. I'll see you on the next one. And we're going to be plugging away at this. There's going to be a lot of videos to this series, but we got to get back into the videography work. So take her easy, everybody. I'll catch you on the next one.